we have seen some liquidity providers partner with Ripple here recently, which is a good deal. They had another one, I think, come out today. Earlier in the week, 200 million being put with them to be able to provide liquidity or cross-margin assets over there at Ripple Prime. I believe that was another 200 million that was placed with them today. So what else is going out there in the market? Again, these people providing liquidity over there for Ripple Prime's balance sheet, I think that's good for everybody. So for those that don't understand what that business does, cross-margining assets is a big deal. Really, Ripple Prime is the first broker, and you could probably consider FalconX in the same demographic of prime brokers that are willing to margin digital assets and give. So what does that mean? Basically, you're able to post that as collateral with them, and then they use that collateral and margin it, and you can put that into other things. So whether that's treasuries or bonds, or if you want to have it in stocks, you can park it wherever you want. So back to the margin. For a lot of people that are holding digital assets, whether that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, USDC, XRP, all of that, you'd be able to, park on the balance sheet there with Ripple Prime. And if you're an institution, so let me caveat that they do not face retail. They might, face off with somebody else that could aggregate that and reflect it with them and a single counterparty that was an institution. But they will not, maybe 3-4 years now, from now, like David Schwartz was talking about at XRP Vegas, they might make their way downstream to retail. But as it sits today, it's just going to be on the institutional side. Evernorth, I would expect, because of their ties there, probably, will be using the XRP on their balance sheet in some capacity with Ripple Prime. We'll have to see, what that looks like or if that's even the case. But, just speculating that might be the case based on, their positioning in the market and, their close ties with Ripple. But that's the benefit there. You're able to post that as collateral, margin it, be able to get access to other investments to be able to generate cash flow off of that position. 3-4 digits here this year, I could see that. I actually think that personally. But again, that requires macro events. And on the macro side, still watching oil hang out around 17,000 yen per barrel. Still watching the JPY 10-year continue to rise. Bond yields are rising across the board. People selling off bonds because they are scared that they are going to have some volatility or not be, paying out. Japan has dumped a ton of treasuries in the last couple months here to be able to push the yen up against the dollar or strengthen their currency. But I think, they've intervened in the currency market 5 times now. Like I said, Monday, if they do one more time, they might have one more time before the IMF will step in. And then I do think we're going to see them raise interest rates. We have Warsh signed in or sworn in. I think last Friday was his first day. I watched a interview with him where he talked about reducing the Fed's balance sheet and lowering interest rates, which they would have to do. I talked about the 2 levers on Monday. If you didn't see that, I would go check it out. For me, watching what they're doing with monetary policy, if you knew a deflationary collapse was coming, you would front run it. You would print a ton of money, which is exactly what they've done. They've dumped, tons of money into the economy. M2 money supply is at an all-time high. Debt is at an all-time high. But if you knew that the economic growth and the deflation that was going to happen because the convergence of AI and blockchain was coming, you would probably do the same thing. So excited for this year in 2026 for the application of AI at scale, Anthropic, and many other. Here's a fun statistic. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but I thought it was interesting. Sam Bankman-Fried, the infamous FTX deal, his private equity that he dumped when all that was going on would be worth $151 billion today. He owned like 10% of Anthropic back then. So, I'm not saying that if they had left him alone, everything would have been okay. But there's enough value there that he could have definitely made everybody whole multiple times over at this point. So, and FTX was more collateralized than the banks are. The banks are fractional reserve lending. They hold 10-1. They're able to loan 10-1. So basically, they have a tenth of the reserves that they have out. And FTX actually, I think it had like 30 or 40% of what they had when they went under. So, hopefully we don't see another SVB or Silvergate or any of the things that happen with the regional banks, because the FDIC ain't got it. They would not be able to cover at this point. So, I'm hoping that we don't see a credit crisis and collapse, but with the reverse carry trade right here on the horizon, I think that that's a possibility. Again, not to scare anybody or say, you shouldn't keep your money in a bank. I think banks are stable. I think that they'll be, bailed out, or if there is a problem, there won't be an issue. Maybe they're holding enough XRP on their balance sheet to be okay when all this plays out. That's just my speculation. We'll see what holds true over the long term.